So good morning, everyone. I just want to thank you for joining us for the Superstars in Business Application Workshop. A few housekeeping notes. The chat feature will be monitored and it's available to ask questions as we go throughout the workshop. We also will hold a Q&A at the end of it. So we'll hold all questions till the end, but go ahead and throw them in the chat if you would like. Moderating today is Mike Vanderslice. He is Northeast Regional Business Development Manager at Environmental Alliance. Mike has been on the Superstars in Business committees for several years, serving as a member and former chair of the Planning Committee and also on the Selection Committee, as well as being a past Superstars and winner himself. So thank you for being with us today, Mike.
Hey, thanks for having us, Carrie, and thanks everyone for participating in this workshop. It really will be worthwhile. A big thing you'll see in this, we'll add, in addition to the Superstars tips that are already in the application, we'll give some more kind of like behind the scenes looks at what we do on the Selection Committee and kind of help you out with your applications. But just to get started, over the last 26 years, the Chamber and members of this Planning Committee we worked hard to tweak this application. It's been modified. I think we kept it the same as we did last year, but we're proud of the Superstars winners over these years, and we're looking forward to selecting our 2024 winners. So having said that, we have three esteemed panelists with us. Krista McLaughlin from Wisman Giordano and Associates. She's a past winner. She won in 2020. Mr. Brett Smith of Cornell Property Management. He's been a great asset to the organization and helping us out on the Selection Committee and I guess the regular committee as well for years. And then also Rich Garrett. He was a 2023 winner in the nonprofit category for Children's Beach House. So if you could each take a couple minutes just to introduce yourselves.
I guess we'll go in order. Mike, hi everybody. Good morning. My name is Krista McLaughlin. As Mike said, our company was an official winner in 2020 with a couple of runner-ups in our situations in our past. I'm their marketing director. I've also served on the Selection Committee, starting on again this year, and also obviously on the panel for the last couple of years. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have, especially about the actual writing of the application.
Brett.
That's good, everybody. Brett Smith, Principal, Cornell Property Management. As Mike said, I'm on the Planning and Selection Committee for Superstars in Business. And the program means a little extra to me. It's named after my grandfather. So I really enjoy the process and learning about all the small businesses in the state of Delaware. And as Krista said, any questions you have, happy to help out and see if we can point you in the right direction.
Lastly, Mr. Rich Garrett.
Good morning, everyone. Rich Garrett from Children's Beach House. We were the nonprofit winner last year. It's a kind of a quick, funny story. My team passed on doing the application, so I picked it up personally and drove the process and was very pleased that we were nominated and won the award, and very proud of it. It meant a lot to us, and happy to answer any questions and throw out some things that we thought about as we move through the application process.
Well, thank you, Rich. And we'll get into the basics here. On the first page of the application, you see some kind of eligibility requirements. There's two forms. There's one for business. There's one for nonprofit. So make sure you fill out the correct one. But eligibility, I believe, is the same. Have to be in business at least 3 years and have to have fewer than 150 full-time employees. There are word limits. We've had years where there's been excessive, either way, not enough words, and you're like, all right, well, they really didn't try on this one, or over the top regurgitation of website marketing fluff, and it's like, that's too much. So I think 2 years ago, we put into place a 450 word per question limit, and I'm almost 99% positive you can't go past that, right, Carrie? It just stops you. Okay. Formatting, review your formatting online. The form allows for rich text, so it's best to type your answers in the online form and save your work. You can do one question, stop, save it, and come back later. It doesn't have to be all done in one shot. Quick tick on, I'll say this now. When I did our application, I did everything in Word ahead of time, like all the questions, and I just kind of submitted it as went along, and I tweaked things here and there. But I didn't do it in one shot. I definitely took my time with it. And there will be, everything is kept in confidentiality with the State Chamber of Commerce and the review committee. So that's not going to be shared with anybody. But as we dive into the details, more focus on, I guess, just the application process in general. Krista, maybe Rich, could you just kind of describe, Krista, from the for-profit perspective, describe kind of your experience applying for Superstars in Business in 2020 or in the past?
Sure, absolutely. And you'll probably hear me say some things over and over again. I'm going to start off by saying overall, this was a really positive experience, and I can't say enough times, and you'll hear me say it multiple times, how this process was worth it from start to finish for us. For us, like I would say one of the best pieces of advice I could give for the actual practical aspect of writing the application and is to get your team involved and get them involved early and often. I don't think anyone can really write a good application just by themselves. Getting fee put in different perspectives, and I think Rachel will have the same thing even from the nonprofit side of it, really just overall improves the quality and of the storytelling, and that's ultimately what will happen here. For us, it's, it was very much straightforward. We had, before I started with the firm, we had been an Award of Excellence winner, I think back in 2017, and frankly, we kind of wanted to win. So I tried again in 2019 once I had joined the team, and came really close. And you'll hear later on that you'll actually get feedback on your application. So if you don't win, you'll actually get feedback from the committee, which is invaluable. And what the committee identified, I rectified in my application. I admitted they were weak spots, and then came back and won in 2020. So it is something that you need to give it time, give it thought, because sometimes if you look at the questions, at least on the for-profit application quickly, I think they can sound slightly similar at first blush, but when you actually read the questions, they are asking for completely different sets of information. So give your self time to think about it, talk to people on your team, and save yourself the effort. If you're going to crank this out in a day, you just won't wait to next year. So that is, kind of it, but overall, hugely positive experience. Rich?
Thanks, Kristen. I would say all of the same things with a couple of twists. I think those of us in the nonprofit world are used to writing for grants, and we have a tendency to use some lingo that, people at Longwood Foundation may understand much more deeply than the folks from the business community. So one of the things we really thought about and put a lot of effort into was paying attention to the language that we use to make sure it made sense in the business world, because we know these are all business leaders that are reading them. The second thing we thought about was really identifying and knowing what our differentiators are. That's a word we don't use a lot in the nonprofit sector, but how are we different from folks who provide similar services to Children's Beach House, and really trying to highlight those things. A couple of us who worked on this project grew up in the Catholic Church, and we kept making jokes about, they don't make people saints because they're perfect. They make people saints because they have one or two qualities that make them stand out, or that made them stand out. So we kind of had that perspective of really wanting to show where we shine. The challenges question, we could talk about some of our challenges honestly. So that was helpful as well. We also wanted to make sure that there was a communication that we were paying attention to our ethics, and making sure that we communicated an understanding that there's a public trust in nonprofit, and so we try to build that into the application. And then the last thing is, we all have case statements for our organizations, and we have to demonstrate the logic between the mission, the values, and how we operationalize it, and what we make different for who and by how much. Those are all really important things to think about and to weave back into this, but again, paying attention to the business language stuff. So those are just some of the thoughts from the overall perspective.
And Krista, you want to add something?
I did. I'm sorry. I completely forgot something I wanted to say. Sorry, everybody. It'll happen. Just two, actually, there are two things. One, from a practical aspect, I can't encourage you enough to run your application through a grammar check. It'll save you. Grammarly, there's so many AI tools out there right now. You work with Grammarly. We have a difference of opinion on the Oxford comma, but that's a Krista thing, fighting it out with Grammarly. And also just, I saw those of you who smiled. I'm like, I see my word nerds. Anyway, Also give supporting data, and that'll be the greatest thing that you can do for yourself aside from giving the application time. It's great to say, we're an awesome company or we're an awesome nonprofit. Cool, awesome. Why? Make sure you back up everything you say from a data point of view. And from Rich point, like for nonprofits, when we say think of it like writing a grant, you want to make sure you're putting it quantifiable behind your statements. So, okay, I'm gonna stop talking.
All right, stop talking, please. Thank you. As we look at the structure of the application overall, and I'm going to kick it to Brett and Krista first on this. You have a good application. We always go through this on the review committee, and we're sitting in that conference room, and we're diving into the details, some do's and don'ts. So for our for-profit businesses first, there's two forms, business and nonprofits. Let's take a couple minutes just to go through Form A for our business for-profit companies. So each question has superstar suggestions. Take them into account. That's what the review committee over the years, we're constantly, I mean, it's crazy. It's almost like so redundant, but we sit in those meetings like, well, they really, you know, they didn't hit it here, here, and here, and it was right there in front of you in terms of that superstar suggestion. So I guess let me go to Brett first. What are some do's, don'ts you see in that Form A for business?
Yeah, I think, you know, as you said, Mike, the superstar suggestions, that's actually in both Form A and B, so overarching. We've read hundreds of applications over the years. Mike's probably had 1,000. But we've seen a lot of the do's and a lot of don'ts, and have compiled these into a superstar suggestion underneath each question. Read those, and that's pretty much what we are looking for in your application. You know, a big thing is staying on target with the question and answering exactly what it's asked, and the suggestion will help you stay in line there. Another big aspect that helps you stand out on the business side is your success metrics. You have different ones, right? There's all the financial metrics, those are fine. Again, as Mike said, these all remain confidential between us and the chamber. So, you know, up to you if you want to share them or not. But different metrics that would indicate that you're a superstar. For example, retention rate. What's your average tenure of employee at your business? You know, things like the customer satisfaction. That's one thing, but how do you measure it, and how is that going to differentiate you from someone else? I think those are a few of the do's. Some of the don'ts is don't use AI to answer the question.
Which did happen last year.
It happened. We can kind of tell because it's, you know, very fluffy and a lot of buzzwords in that answer. So avoid AI for answering your questions, and make it, you know, come from the heart, right? Come from whoever is writing this application, and really how can you make yourself stand out? That's the key. Krista, do you want to add anything on top of that?
Sure. I mean, I would say as a marketing person, I'm guilty of the overuse of adjectives. We love descriptors, but I would say here it's echo Brett's point. It's not about fluff. It's about authenticity. It's about being honest, and it's about your story. And I mean, yes, we receive applications and multiple applications per category, so you are competing against other companies, but in a sense, you're really just competing against yourself in the sense, because it's really about your story. You know, you may be in construction and the other person may be in food delivery. They're not necessarily the same entity, like we fall in the same category, but really, you know, we're not like, oh, it's construction, it's construction, or it's food delivery versus food delivery. It's really about, I would say, authenticity versus authenticity. And just make sure, like, so don't copy and paste your marketing material. Like I said, even if the questions sound the same to you at a quick glance, read them again, really pay attention to the superstars. Hints they are, I mean, honestly, I ticked them off to make sure I hit all the marks when I was doing it, my application. And, you know, like I said, just reiterating, don't say the obvious, like a one sentence to an answer would have to be the heck of a one sentence for it to really like, convey your story with like quantifiable data and such. But we're really just looking for you just to, you know, take a good self-examination and share that with the committee. It'll serve you well in the long run.
And if I could jump in there, you said don't state the obvious. I'm the ultimate stickler, and I think a lot of folks are on this review committee. And there's like, I think like 20 people in the room, and every application gets reviewed, and everyone can give input as we go around the room, going through each category. There's so many applications like we provide quality, cost-effective, practical services to do our best for our clients. Like, yep, so does everybody else. That's why you're applying. So if you're going to say it, make sure you back it up with them. You know. That drives me bonkers because there's one application last year I was really like, yep, and so does everybody else. Yep, so does every other accounting firm. Yep, so does every other engineering firm. Let's move to the Form B for nonprofits. Again, Rich, if you could shed some light on just your thoughts, do's, don'ts, maybe also with the organization's expense allocations and how to best interpret and present that in the application, that'd be great.
Sure. So I would echo what has been said on Form A. Stay away from Chat GPT. Also, especially in the nonprofit world, I think we do use a lot of fluff and adjectives, and it's driving a little bit deeper and really looking for what's honest and authentic, and being confident in that. I think that background information that number 2 question gives us a wonderful opportunity to really explain our logic models in a way that starts with the mission and vision and moves through to how we actually know we're making a difference for folks with the data. How do we collect the data? And, you know, this doesn't have to be in detail. You don't have that much room, but to say, you know, you use surveys or you review report cards or whatever it is if you're working in children's work, or health outcomes if you're in a healthcare situation.
Stop.
Yep. Did somebody say stop, or is that?
She was telling somebody else to stop.
Oh, okay.
Not you, Rich.
So,
Not
so those things, I think, you know, drawing that logic model from mission and vision all the way through to deliverables and how you measure them is really important to succinctly explain. I would also think that on number 5, when you talk about the qualified workforce and how you recruit and retain staff, board members, and volunteers, it's an excellent opportunity to talk about your culture. What is it that's different about your culture, and how does that influence or impact the outcomes that you're driving toward for your consumers? And then number 7 kind of threw some folks that I knew were also working on this project. It is, it's a little different because it doesn't show up in the for-profit one, obviously, but this is really about the ethics question. It's, in my mind, it's about knowing what these numbers are. What are you spending on, you know, your program services, fundraising, and your G&M, and it really does talk about the percentage of investment we have in service delivery, and that's an opportunity to talk about that. That information is obviously on our 990s. And so it's public information, and I would suggest that you pull that from your 990 and you make sure it matches. Not sure if the committee would dive that deeply, but you certainly wouldn't want to be caught with one thing on here and something else on your 990. So just as a quick overview, those are my thoughts about the Form B.
All right, thank you, Rich. So here's the big one, the big one that gets everybody every year. Question 7 for business, and it's question 6 for the nonprofit. It's overcoming your challenges. And it's a fun one that I have the most fun with reviewing, just to see what people present, whether it be, you know, I don't know, like someone like you have a CEO presents his own personal challenge. Like, we want to hear about your organization, not you personally. So a lot of applicants really struggle with responding to this specific question. I guess I'll start with Krista, and then just if we move to Brett and then Rich next. Any tips on what you're looking for in response?
Straight up authenticity. The challenge is a challenge to you. Don't worry about a challenge and how you think it might relate to others. for love of God, don't mention COVID. We've all moved on from that, at least challenge wise. I mean, your challenge could be, your office was invaded by, frogs and you had to relocate for a month and a half until the frogs were evicted. I mean, it can be anything that, is particular to you. You are in e-commerce and your site shut down, and how did you deal with that? Or the sprinkler broke and your inventory got wiped out. How did you come back? And I think as much as we want to know what the challenge is and make it a true challenge, and don't be like, I care too much and I work too hard. No, save that one. We don't want that. Thank you. Thank you for playing. What we're looking for is what your challenge was, make it a real one. And what you're either in the process of overcoming, which is cool. It doesn't have to be something that's in the past. It could be a current ongoing challenge. And what steps you're taking to remedy that, to dig your way out, either dig your way out or how you dug your way out. That's what
And I know Brett has some, I know, like, because Brett and I were on a committee last year, so he has some cool advice on this specific one.
Yeah.
Regarding risk. How about risk?
Yeah, definitely. I do just want to reiterate what Chris has said about COVID, like working from home, all that stuff. It is a challenge, but it's not going to make a difference for us. I'll personally skip it if you mention COVID. I'm looking for creativity with this question, right? And for me, it's like different risks that you took, perhaps. Why did you take that risk? It could be, you're comfortable with a software for your particular company that you've had since 2010, right? You don't need to grow. Why would you go through the headache of a software conversion? Now, software conversion is a challenge, yes, but why did you do it, right? How's that going to benefit you in the long term? And so what I really want to know is why you took that risk and what payoffs did the risk have? Or as Chris has said, if you're in the middle of it, what do you anticipate it to happen long term? So that to me is a great way to answer that question.
Yeah, and it gives you a different spin on it, right? You're not just like, oh, like you said, the frog challenge. Oh, there's frogs in our house and we had to overcome that. It's like, all right, we took a risk and we invested in this new software. We didn't know how it was going to shake out, but we did 1, 2, and 3, X, Y, and Z. And here was the rainbow at the end, or here's the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Rich, anything to add for overcoming challenges, especially your recent experience?
All the same, but I would suggest if you're stuck on this question, take a look at your strategic plan, because the strategic plan should be identifying risks and opportunities, and as we implement those plans, there are always challenges. And I'm sure, like business, nonprofits have no shortage of challenges. It's just which one are we going to pick and talk about in a way that reinforces those other things that we've already said about our mission, our vision, our values, our outcomes, our deliverables. That's a great opportunity to say we made these decisions to do some more of these things. So other than that, that's all I have.
Yeah, and I would add too, we saw, I feel like it was last year, maybe the year before, if your organization is part of a national franchise, but you're a local presence there, make sure your stories about you, strong focus on your challenges, not like, oh, well, ABC Printing, lost a key account and we were supporting that account in the Mid-Atlantic, so don't make it on a national level. If you are part of a franchise, focus on your specific office challenges. Again, like I said earlier, we had one application last year where it's like, it was definitely a marketing person writing the application, but it was one of their senior leaders, like a CFO, CEO, had a challenge, and it wasn't really based on the organization. Like, his car broke down, he was late for a meeting. Like, we don't want to hear about that. We want to hear about the organization's challenges. But thank you very much for everyone for answering that one. Kind of moving forward, best practices when it comes to these applications. We won in 2011, Chris in 2020, Rich in 2023. We've written applications, we've gone through and we've seen a lot in the last few years working on this review committee. So there's definitely, we know what to look for when there's a good application, and also right away. I know me, Brett, again, last year on our subcommittee is like this one, like this guy spent 15 minutes on it. So I guess if our panelists, and I want to start, I guess, with Brett on this one, can you embellish on, provide some advice on what you see, okay, this one's, so everyone real quick, and I apologize, I'm bouncing all over it. The way our scoring works, 1 to 5. So question, whatever, 7, recent, current, significant challenge, we can score 1 to 5, 3.5, 4.5. We can do any kind of metric you want, just that's the way the scale works. What would you say allows a applicant to score higher on a particular question? Anything you can embellish on with regard to like best practices?
Yeah, I like to see like a complete thought and a complete story, but concisely and efficiently stated, right? You could tell a whole lot about an answer just by looking at it without even reading it, right? Like if it's 3 lines to Mike's point and you spent 15 minutes on it, it's like, okay, well, you're not going to really stand out unless it's like very direct to the point, but like it like kind of packs a punch, right? If you follow the superstar suggestion and answer the question in full and not just fill it with fluff again, right? But you utilize those 450 words to your advantage, that is a pretty solid practice to follow, and is definitely going to stick out for us reading the applications.
We bounce to Rich next.
So I guess best practices were, those really important things that have been mentioned. Run this through spell check, make sure Grammarly's got things tight. And I guess the most important thing is remembering who your audience is. Like I said earlier, these are business folks. They get right to the point, in my experience, and have a different way of thinking than some of us in the nonprofit world do. So I would just say, remember who's reading it.
And Krista?
Just to echo what Rich and Brett have said, right. So the committee is like 20-ish people from a variety of different industries. So, again, when it comes to audience, you want to make sure that you're not taking a presumptive leap that people know what you're talking about. So that's why you want to back up everything. When we're talking about writing, it doesn't have to be like we were talking about, like beautiful language, in the sense that bullets are okay. Like if you want to say we support our team by this, or like our challenges with this, and you want to give us like 5 bullets, what business person doesn't like to read bullets? So I mean, I'm not saying you have to do that, but like when we're talking about efficiency, I'm not your English professor. I'm not going to grade you on it, but we're just talking about effective, clear communication, and clear communication can be short. So I mean, like we're not anti-bullet. Let's put it this way. And just really just back up your answers. It's what comes to and getting people involved. Like get your CEO involved. Go knock on doors. Go talk to your CFO, your marketing person, your program officer, whatever it is. Because also the more buy-in you get from your team, well, one, your answers are going to be better, and then there'll be more excitement for the program overall, and hopefully you'll be more supported in the long run. There you go. That's what I got.
And I would say too, Brett said this earlier, staff retention. That's important. We see that a lot, in questions like, are you building on your staff levels? Are you increasing growth? Are you seeing, a marginal increase every year, exponential increase? How long have your folks been with the organization? That's important. They know that you've had folks that have been with your company 20+ years, and it's 80% of them. That's great retention. That means there's a great culture there. So don't be afraid to talk about that as well. And we had one question in the chat from Alex, and Krista kind of hit on it with the bullets. Yes, 100%. Bullets are great. Bang, bang, bang. You hit the high points, and that's really important. I'd say, based on my experience with the review committee, a lot of folks love that when they have responses and bullets for certain questions. So
yeah, and like, just want to add something too, right? Like for example, I talked about the financials earlier. You could give me whatever metrics you want, tell me why they're important and how you use them, right? It's one thing to say, we increased X% in profits from this year to this year, and give it to me over the past 5 years. Well, why is that important to your business? How do you utilize that to measure your success, other than obviously saying we made more money, right? Like there's going to be a deeper how. Show me, right? Show the committee why that's important to your specific company, because that will show, stability, growth, and and improvement long term for your business.
Well, thank you, Brett. And again, if anyone has any other questions, just pop them in the chat and we can answer them as we go along. We can answer them at the end as well. One other big thing as we're kind of moving along here is you can submit a 2-page attachment. Files accept are a PDF, doc, docx, JPEG, what's the difference between a JPEG and a JPG? Is that the same? And a PNG, whatever that file is. The size limitation is 50 meg for the total for that 2-page attachment. So just be cognizant of that if you're throwing in some photographs or whatever. But that's extremely influential, I would say, with the review committee. So we'll get one application. It's just a bunch of words. That's great. If that same application is comparable to somebody else, and the second person has attachments showing a lot of cool stuff they've done over the year with their community service, or maybe a company event, or a picture of the frogs in the office and then the frog's gone now, that really helps paint a picture of your organization and your culture. So I guess round robin on this one, and Krista, if you want to jump in, you're a marketing guru. What would you like to see in the attachments?
Okay, so I have feelings about this. I should just let people know right up front. So my feelings are that you did all this writing. You're like, great, I did it. Oh, here's a throwaway for the attachment. Oh, that's so wrong. Like, the visual storytelling can be a really great asset. I mean, I know when I submit mine, I believe in the power of the collage for storytelling as well, because I'd mentioned a new website. So I did a couple screenshots of our website and a couple other things we were doing. It was at that point it was a single page, but now you can do 2-page attachments. So like, if one of your answers focus on like your community outreach or the team building activities you've been doing to retain your team, put pictures in. Like, for love of God, I'm going to save you the effort right now. If your plan is to send me a screenshot of the cover shot of your brochure or to attach your marketing brochure, we're good. Thanks. We don't need that. we even like, don't send me the first shot of your website. If I can just pull it up, I'm like, great, they have a website. Welcome to 1992. So, really, this is an opportunity for visual storytelling. For nonprofits, if you're talking about the communities you serve, give us some photos. But it's really an opportunity. It doesn't have to be a single image. It can be 2 attachments, but 1 page each, guys. 1 page each, because you don't want to drown the committee, and we're looking at a whole bunch of applications. But really take the opportunity. That is a visual representation to back up the data you've given us in writing. Don't treat it as a throwaway. That's my strong advice to you, because committee likes bullets and the committee likes pictures.
Yeah. Rich, anything to add to that, or Brett?
No, I don't think so.
It's pretty straightforward. And a big one, again, community service. It's hard to, sometimes people say, well, we do this, and this, and we support this organization. We do this 5K, and we do this food bank event. But to see it really helps paint a picture. Like, was it just 2 people that did it? Was their whole company did it? Wow, there's 45 people in that 5K for whatever, So I don't know. It just helps, when you're comparing apples to apples with the different categories. We're wrapping up here, so I want to get to one big thing too, and this affected Krista in 2017, 2019. Over the years, you have winners and losers, and if you don't win in one year, that's quite okay. Don't be discouraged if you don't win that first year or two when you're applying. As Krista shared, you are going to get feedback. So if you don't win, you get the word of excellence, or you just don't, you don't place. Maybe there's just somebody that just knocked it out of the park. So use that as a learning process. Take a step back, look at the company as a whole. What could you have improved upon? And we do. And another thing too, after all the applications are submitted, you can contact Carrie at the state chamber, and if you have like specific feedback, like especially us, between Chris and myself and Brett, like we'll talk to you about what we saw in the application. You'll get feedback from the whole committee, but if you want to talk to somebody about what you thought could have been improved upon, or even beforehand when you're submitting your application, this happened a couple years ago. If you have a question, after this is all done and you're working on question 5, quality workforce, if you just are getting stuck, just shoot Carrie an email and she'll pass it to somebody on the review committee, and we can give you some additional tips to kind of help you out and navigate that. But I guess starting with Brett, anything I missed there to that point? If you first start to succeed, try again.
Yeah, I mean, there's several applications, that you're going against every year, right? So at the end of the day, only two finish at the top, the winner and the award of excellence. So it's, not everybody's going to win, and it doesn't mean you put in a bad application, right? It just means someone might have had something a little bit stronger in the eyes of the committee. So, we're pretty open about that. We have, sometimes very long discussions about who deserves to win in that particular year. So, after you write your application for the first time, like sit on it for a little bit and then come back and see if you can improve it anymore. See if you can become more efficient. See if you can add anything that will make you stand out to the committee. That's probably going to be one of the best things that you can do. And again, to Mike's point, if you don't win in the first year, if it's your first year applying or your second or your third, that's okay. We're here to give you feedback, to answer your questions during the process and throughout. So don't hesitate to reach out if you have a specific question.
And then Rich, from the nonprofit world, anything to add?
No, not really. Sorry.
Okay. So we did have one more question in the chat from Vivian. Do you need to be a member of the chamber to apply? I don't think so, right? Carrie, you don't have to be a member? Okay.
No, it's open to both non-members and members.
Right. And they're judged equally. And if you win, then we want you to be a member and join the organization. And another question, if retention of entry-level staff has been a problem, nonprofit, can you advise why? I'm gonna throw it to Rich.
Well, that might be something I would think about putting in the challenge section and be honest about it, and honest about what you're doing about it and what has worked or what hasn't worked and what your new approach is. That's what I would suggest.
We're moving forward here. Any last advice from our panelists? Krista, to you first. Any last advice for our folks on the panel here? Or on the
Oh, Mike, I do. Anyway, okay, so just a couple quick little notes here. This is really an opportunity to showcase of why you work where you do, or what you chose to own, what you own. If you're the case of business owners, your opportunity to be proud and tell the story. If you're an employee, you could work anywhere. Why do you work there? So it's really is an opportunity to, put your pride on, put your pride out there. There's nothing wrong with being proud of what you do or what you own. Keep the story focused on the company overall and not just like a particular leader or a person in leadership. Like my, CEO does X, Y, and Z, and just focus on say the community service that person does. Look at it, tell the company, the story of the company, not just a couple of particular leaders. And just really quickly about the visuals, going back to that, just don't drop in a link. You don't want to have to make the committee to have to go do homework and hunt down your visuals. You want that to be something that you lay out for us on the line. And I will tell you guys, my 2020 application, I have sliced and diced that every which way for the last 4 years to reuse it on supporting materials when I have to submit other applications for things. It has been so handy to have this document already prepared and ready for my usage. So it may be a little bit work up front now. It is going to serve you as something you can lean on for years to come. You can just extract what you need from this well thought out document. So put in the effort. It'll save you time in the long run.
How about you, Brett?
Yeah, a big one for me is remembering who you're competing against and who's reading the application. Great example is the four of us on this panel, right? I'm in real estate, Mike's in environmentals, Chris is in accounting, and Richard's in nonprofit, right? We're four completely different industries. We may have different company sizes. When you're writing your application, if you're an accountant, you're not just competing against other accounting firms. You're competing against a real estate firm, environmental company, right? So the people reading the application are all in different industries, and the people and companies that you're competing against are in different industries. You're just competing against companies that are similar size to you. So what's going to make you differentiate yourself and stand out against those companies? That's something to consider when writing your application.
And Mr. Rich.
So I think that this is a great opportunity for us in the nonprofit world to think about changing the way we present our story. And to other folks, it's a very helpful process. As we were just hearing from Krista, it's something that you will go back to and use again, and again and again. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity. Again, I would focus on how you were different in positive ways, and absolutely include some element about the culture that you've established within. So it makes sense to the reader.
That was really good. That's a great answer. I would echo kind of what Krista said before. You know, you're working on this application, you're gonna crush it, and you can use it for other applications, or maybe you use other applications to help you answer these questions. One thing I would not do, and this happened last year, don't cut and paste like a marketing response from a Delaware Business Times article and throw it as an answer in this application, because there's some interesting people on our selection committee that will hunt that down, says this sounds like an article, and they'll find it on Google and they'll read it, and then it all of a sudden discredits like the whole application, even though you did wonderful and everything else. All of a sudden you have this weird stigma over you that you're, you know, cut and paster. So try to make it as authentic as possible for this audience, and this, you know, even if you're cutting and pasting from other applications, especially in that nonprofit world with grants, try to make it as authentic as possible for this audience, for Superstars in Business, for this chamber. Any questions? Any other questions from the group or folks on the Zoom? Some good questions though, we did get. Carrie, did you get any questions in the, like?
I have two. They get asked all the time, and I think we've touched on them today, but they are very important. Do we have to use all of the Superstar suggestions?
Krista.
I mean, I would strongly recommend following the suggestions that the committee, who is choosing the winner, laid out before you in a nice, like on a platter. I would strongly recommend following those guidelines.
And I would say too, and I said this in years past on other workshops, you don't have to do it all in one shot. We said that earlier. And it's not due till July 18th, I believe. So you got a couple months to work on this. You know, take a week per question to kind of knock, you know, do your best with, if you're the one writing it or you're someone on your staff writing it, have them try to just knock out one per week. It makes your life easier. Have a second set of eyes on it to provide peer review, run it through Grammarly, run it through a grammar tool. And it's weird. It's like everyone on the committee, to Brett's point, everyone comes from different industries and everyone scrutinizes the applications differently too. So I'm reading it just for the story, right? There was one person last year that had a binder printed out of every application and had notes like they're in college coursework. And I had mine like a couple printed out, you know, with all my notes handwritten on it. So it's wild to see how many people, or just the different approaches to review of these applications. Again, take your time with it, get peer review. Try to think if there's anything else. You said there's one more question, right, Carrie?
It's about the attachments. So they just want to know how important the attachment actually is. Okay,
I think we answered that, right? Anyone have any questions on that? 2 pages. There's what you can, in the application itself, it tells you what kind of format and the size it can be in. But the biggest thing I would share is, again, photos are great. If you have metrics, graphs, that kind of stuff is cool. Avoid the narrative, avoid a link to your website. You want to paint a picture of what makes you different. I like how Rich put it earlier, like you're what makes a saint a saint. You know, they did 1 or 2 really unique things that set them apart. What's your sainthood journey look like? Everyone wants to be a saint. I guess back to you, Carrie. Anything else from your end?
Yeah, so just some housekeeping things. Let's see. So the deadline to apply is going to be Thursday, July 18th at 4:30 p.m. There is a PDF application on our website as well, but that's just for reference. You must submit online. And you'll find that at superstarsandbusiness.com. I posted the link in the chat, the online application, dscc.com/superstarsandbusiness. Sorry about that. And then when you're finished filling out the application, you can simply click submit. You also have the opportunity to save it. You're going to click save, enter your email address, and then it'll send you a URL link that you can reopen the application when you're ready to enter more responses. Once it's submitted, a confirmation page will appear with a link to edit the submission after, if you wish. The attachments can be uploaded directly to the application on the form. And it has to be submitted by July 18th at 4:30 p.m. After the application closes, the selection committee members will receive the applications for review. They have about a month or so to review them. The committee will meet at the end of August. The winners will be announced in September. And every single person that submitted an application will either get a call from me or an email on the results of their application. And applicants not chosen as superstars will receive feedback letters at some point after September before the application for the next year opens. So save the date. The awards luncheon is November 6th at the Hotel DuPont in Wilmington. Winners will receive a promo video filmed by 1440 Film Co. This is an incredible marketing tool. The videos are just top notch. They're great. They are premiered at the event. They'll have a professional photo shoot and be featured on the cover of Delaware Business Magazine along with an article. You receive 2 tickets to the award ceremony at the Hotel DuPont, where you'll also receive a Crystal Superstar in Business Award. And you get all the press exposure and publicity that comes along with being named a superstar in business. So if you'd like to connect with a selection committee member for one-on-one advice on your writing your best application, you can go ahead and email me at kwelcher@dscc.com and I can make an introduction for you. This workshop video will be uploaded to the Delaware State Chamber's website shortly, and it'll be available for reference. I'll also send that link out to everyone that attended today. So thank you all for joining us and good luck.